G'day and welcome to Inforunners. I'm Excute, joined today by Badges and old man Jon Citizen. How you doing, guys?
Yeah, not bad, thank you, mate. Yourself?
It's 6 a.m. You tell me. Jon, how you doing?
Nice.
I'm doing very well, thank you. Looking much better than you as well.
Oh, that's not hard, Jon. That's not hard.
I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, Badges' face kind of says what I'm feeling, but that's fine. Yeah, so literally about 3.5 hours ago, they dropped the Expanse for sale to concierge. We've gone over it with a whole bunch of people, you know, that usually go through this stuff, and we thought we'd just kind of show you what we've seen. Surprisingly, compared to the last video, a lot of what we said was correct. So I think the big one with we thought the bags were going to go in the back door. They don't go in the back door. They kind of get extracted outside, but now we're thinking that back door might be for collection of the bags, but you know, we'll have to wait and see. And we'll also talk about some of the questions we have for the Q&A. I think there's two big questions that I have. Whether or not they get answered is another thing entirely. So yeah, but Badges, you weren't here for the last one, so can you give me your like initial and now kind of a bit more thought out impressions of the Expanse?
Yeah, so it's one of the rare times that kind of the making an assumption actually worked out for me. I saw the piece of artwork that had the saddlebag at the back,
this one?
under the tractor beam.
This
yeah,
one?
and yeah, something similar. Is it that one? Similar to that one? Yes. And I assumed that was the transfer, and it now looks like that is exactly what's happened. But that is the tractor beam holding it in place, and then the nozzle comes out, connects into the top. There's a circular attachment and pulls the refining material out. It can also do that on the pods down the side, it turns out.
Do you want this image?
But,
that'll kind of explain what you're talking about. Yeah.
Perfect. You know, it's there's a lot of detail there, and it's also it looks really cool.
Yeah.
So you've got.
So just to tell people really quickly, this image is actually hidden on this page. If you want to find it, you've actually got to go down to the gallery. I don't understand why it's not on the normal sales stuff, but if you go down to this gallery and it is hidden in one of these images. There, that one.
Yeah.
So it's the third image in the gallery if you're looking for it. But yeah, it's kind of really coolly shows how this all works. So sorry, Badges, you were saying before I rudely interrupted you.
Yeah, no worries. So you've got the stowed, you've got the tractor beam unit, so you've got at the bottom effectively the attachment that's going to hold the pod in place. At the top, the tractor beam comes out, picks up the cargo pod, brings it around, and then it looks like there's a metal rim that effectively it clicks onto, and then the nozzle extends from that little grey tube, connects into the top, sucks out of the refinable material, and then deposits it into whatever processes you've got in the 6 separate refinery units in it. I must admit, when I first saw this come out, I thought that's a pretty nice looking ship. Definitely fulfills the MISC thing. I think they're like the design language around MISC is becoming so accomplished.
Yeah,
it looks really, really good. And then, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised today when I saw the prices.
Yeah, that was definitely. Well, I kind of said somewhere between 150 to 220 going in line with the other starters. It also probably means that it's going to go up about another $25 when it comes in game. So that puts it about 175. So it kind of does sit in there. I'm trying to think of. I know there's going to be another one that I'm getting wrong, but I can't think of another starter that's kind of in that price range. It's in between the two gaps, if you know what I mean. I think the prospector's 155, and then there's got to be one I'm missing, but yeah, the next one after that.
I'm not sure what the Vulture came out as.
The Vulcan's 200. The Vulture's 140, but when that goes in the game, that'll probably be like 160. So yeah, but we're getting this nice little gradual stepping stone. Long story short, so this one kind of falls in the middle. But you know, so some of the things that we went over today, like a lot of people still think it's very big for a solo ship. But I think that this ship is really built around storage. We'll go a little bit over that in a minute. But yeah, were you kind of surprised by the size? Because if I go down here, to me, I always thought it was going to fall in line with the Prospector and the whole A, so it had to be on a small pad. So it had to kind of be the Freelancer is the biggest ship we can have at 38 meters. So it kind of fell where I thought it was going to fall.
Yeah, it does. It certainly does look big for a single person. And does that mean that we've got this little space behind the crew compartment? And it's the one you see it in one of the images. You're looking through the window. There's the dude stood at the refinery terminal. Does that mean that
that one?
Yeah, that one. Does it mean that he's able to do that from the cockpit? Does it have to be stationary to do this stuff? How does he control the tractor beam from there? Does he have cameras and stuff that he can effectively see through a screen? There's a lot of questions, but actually, I thought from the side cutaway view, it actually looked pretty chunky and pretty squat. But now we've seen the wireframe. It's a good looking ship.
Yeah,
I'm quite impressed.
Just real quickly while I'm thinking of it, this ship appears to be a lot further along as well. Like if you go down here, they've actually got shots of it from in the hangar. I think this is model-wise complete, but they're waiting things for like the refining mini game, the tractor beam, with the cargo refactor. Obviously, they all have to be online for this to be a like minimal operating type thing. So I think the model is kind of done. I think we're just waiting on some other gameplay things. John, with what you've seen today, how has it changed from the other week for you, for when we did the last show last week?
No, it's given me more questions, especially with part of the discussion I heard earlier.
Which was what? What was that discussion, John?
When you were in supporters earlier, I heard some of the conversation. It was like the cargo.
Yep. Well,
actually,
okay.
On the buying page, it says it's 128, but when you scroll down there, it says 64.
So what I reckon, this is what I was going to bring up when I talk about cargo. I think this is the ore cargo, and I think the other part that's missing, because they haven't talked about it yet, and if you look at some of the other ships, when they have specialized cargo, it's not listed. So the Reclaimer, for example, it only lists the cargo for the cargo bay, but it doesn't list all the other stuff that it can hold. And if you remember back in the day, like those of us who have been here for a really long time, the Reclaimer had a massive cargo thing because it had all this storage for the waste and all that, as in like the salvage. And so I think this might fall into that category where these saddlebags is what's listed here on the page here of 64, because it's 8x8 SCU, which is what one saddlebag is. So that makes sense, 64. But clearly you look at this ship, the way the roundness of this ship is shown, and it's got lots of roundness. I think that they are the liquid and gas storage tanks. Now, there are others that have talked with us that don't agree with that. They think it's just something else. But, again, you look at that cutaway you were talking about, John, there's a lot of, I've got to find the cutaway now, but that's a lot of space to have nothing in, and the other thing I brought up was, the Prospector, the Freelancer, and the Hull A, they all have ladders. This thing has an internal ladder and elevator, so, and then a door. So, like, you must be a reason to have the door to get in here for something. And the logical thing I think of is storage tanks. And we know it being a refinery from stuff that Dan Truffin talked about, they've literally said you can bring in liquid, gas, and solids, but it also can go out the other way. So if you think of Quantanium as an example, it comes in as a solid and it goes out as a liquid. So that means every refinery ship must be able to bring in and therefore put out those as well. So I'm imagining, much like they discuss here with the saddlebags, you can use them to store refined ore and unrefined ore. I'd assume it'd have to be the same thing on the internals of the ship, where you have storage tanks for both gas and liquid.
Yes,
but I also wonder whether that extra 64 is talking about the refinery reactors themselves, the area where the refining takes place. Which would kind of make sense, because people are like, well, why would you turn that into storage? It's like, well, you'd try not to, right? Because if it's storage, you can't refine anything. But that would make sense that there would have to be a kind of, especially when you can detach the pods and presumably they can come off if damaged in combat or in, close operations, or you dink an asteroid. You would assume that it wouldn't just automatically vent the refined material into space. You would have to manually transfer it out, and if it's got nowhere to go, you just keep it in the refinery reactor and accept that and it's going to be there till you can get rid of it.
I think that also shows too what this a little bit about that as well, because it actually has two nozzles. You can see one here, and it is mentioned in the on the page as well. Obviously, it's probably got one for its own story, like fuel tank, but also it probably means that this has either got to offload to a station, or more likely to a starfarer that can then sell the fuel, because this can't refuel ships, but a starfarer can. So I can actually see this being part of a fleet where it brings the fuel to the starfarer, and the starfarer is literally just like a petrol station almost, So yeah, again, a lot of this is going to be in interest of time stuff. This may come to pass, because let's be honest, when this first goes in the game, it's not going to do gas and it's not going to do liquids. That's down the road. So yeah.
Yeah, because why I was looking, why the 128 interested me was because that is 4 prospector loads.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but I think you'd kind of agree too. If you look at these saddlebags, you could almost say, like, if this is 64, I could clearly see, this bottom part of the ship and maybe these bits on the sides here. That's roughly about the same size. So we'll wait and see. I've got other questions too, like what are these? Like we know, because we can tell you, by the way, that these are the guns. You can see them up here. It looks just like a bearing gun, and it's only got size 1s. So what are all these things on the arms? Like, are these just scanners? But then what's this weird U-shaped style gun? So there are still many, many questions. And I think the other thing, that the question I'd like to know, if I was to put one in the Q&A, is, what does this ship store liquid and gas before and after refining? And that would answer, the question, because it makes so much sense to me. As a refinery ship, you're going to have different types, or is because this is a prospector, it's only an ore-based one, and so for them maybe the mold does liquid and gas, or are they going to have separate ones so you can have a liquid and gas refining and then solid refining? So these are all questions that we need to know. And there was another one. Well, go ahead.
The other interesting thing is the door at the back.
Yep.
Where it says 8x8, that could be it. So the ones on the side are actually used for potentially onloading and offloading, and the storage, and that door acts a bit like at a 10-pin bowling alley. The bowling ball comes in through the one bit and then goes onto one side or the other. You can have exactly the same there with, so that center section is effectively storage for 8 more.
Yeah, I think that's probably what this is. It's something that takes the bags in and packs them back up to hand off back to the prospector or something like that. We were joking earlier today, wouldn't it be funny if they passed them all the way through and they came out the front of the nose? But I just don't think that's a thing. This still looks like it opens, but we'll wait and see in the interest of time. Because quite honestly, it almost looks like a freelancer that's got a gas mask on or something. It's very different facially. I don't know what else word to use there than any of the other the mist style ships, but it's interesting. And I just really want to know more about the function, but I don't think we'll learn about the liquid and gas stuff too much further down the road. But yeah, so it could be really interesting. I still think this is VTOL, which kind of makes a lot of sense. The other thing we noticed here was there is kind of like a crack here in the engine, implying that this could possibly rotate. So if you had this at the back, VTOLing down in here, there's your 4 points for VTOL. So that could be really interesting as well. And it makes like you guys tell me your opinion, but I think this has to follow the prospect of the planet. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would go with at least 2 prospectors, I should imagine, if. Because the prospector's got 4 bags, so if you have 2 prospectors, you can get 2 loads, refine it. You can either then, while they're searching for some more, you can go and sell that.
John, I can't believe it. I know something about the prospector that you don't. John, it actually has 8 bags because it's got 4 of them packed away.
Yeah, but the thing is that the 4 bags it fills up
Mm-hmm.
will go to the Expanse. Then they'll drop down the other 4,
Mm-hmm.
so we can carry on mining while you're refining. Can you refine it while you're flying to somewhere to sell the stuff?
Well, I
Can you
imagine,
sell
John,
it
you
direct
just
from the Expanse?
get out of the seat and go to the back while it's warping, John, and hope you don't get pulled over, so to speak, or pulled out of quantum. So I think that will be a thing. And the other question that came up for me is the whole A, because they have a thing between the whole A and the prospector in its Q&A about it working together. And I think you could actually have a whole A going back and forwards between the station rather than the refinery ship.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And just
what's the cargo capacity on the Hull A?
God, now you're putting me in a tough bind.
Oh,
I'll get back to you on that, John. I know it's fairly high. Or if I could look, well, look, all right, we'll be unprofessional just because John's here, right? Because he's the master of unprofessional. Star Citizen,
you carry on. I'm going to close my
Hull
browser.
A cargo, and just see what we come up with. It would help if I could spell, John. You're making this show very unprofessional. Cargo capacity of 512 SCU based on, yeah, that's completely out of date. 64 SCU, which is actually exactly the same as the Expanse. So it's got the same. Wow, okay, that's weird. So these 8 saddlebags is all the Hull A can carry. That's okay. I don't know if that's true, but if that's true, that's, yeah. That almost is picture perfect, though, isn't it, John?
It's too picture perfect. Really,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. So yeah, the other thing that was confirmed too, because I've had people in the comments saying, "Oh, they're called refineries." No, they're called reactors. It literally calls them refinery reactors here somewhere. I have to find them. Yeah, it literally calls them refinery reactors. I've got to find it. There you go, refinery reactors 6.
There you go.
So that removed that confusion. But yeah, or added more. Well, some of the word usage here, like one of the things we were talking about were these pod bays, because there's pod docks, pod bays, cargo pods, and yeah, their word usage is a little bit stuffed around as well. I think the other thing we can kind of confirm, there is no real door on this anymore. It is really just it's showing this sorter as an external. You know, it's really cool type of thing. It just looks cool, and this will obviously rotate, so it'll be something that you can visually see. But yeah, I think really you don't really have access to the back of the ship. It's all really automated. It's more like an side image. It's just here and that, and the part at the bottom. They did talk about a split layer. I remember that in the thing, so I'm wondering if you can still somehow go down into this front section. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I think there's definitely some kind of
that's the way to get in, isn't it, from the front?
Yeah. So, but the thing is, this is what I was going to say, John. But I still think there's some kind of cargo or storage here, because it just doesn't make sense. Why would you have all these other ships that have external ladders and then you put a door and an elevator in? There must be another reason why you want to come onto this floor. Because quite honestly, if you think about it, if you don't need to come onto this floor, why couldn't they just put a ladder on the outside like they have on all the other MISC starters? So it just doesn't add up. So there has to be something in here that we need answers to. So yeah. All right. Is there anything else you want to add, Badges or John?
Well,
no, I think it's worth mentioning very quickly that in terms of price for US dollars, they've hit concierge, so we know the prices. The standalone war bonds, so that's lifetime insurance, can't use store credit. We're looking at 162 US dollars.
Yep.
The standalone that you can use store credit on is $180. And then there is a standard edition upgrade at the minute. No war bond edition, as you would expect. So
I was just going to say, sneeze. So I just did sneeze. Sorry about that. There is this really cool little pack here as well. For two, again, excuse prices because they're in Australian and I don't have a way to turn them off. But I believe this is like 270 or something, but don't quote me on that. But they both come with LTI, so you can actually pick up a prospector and the refinery with LTI. So that's a good little deal. And I think you save. Someone was saying you save 20 off one and 25 off the other. It's like it's like almost like a $50 saving. So that's actually pretty good, especially if you're like John and you're really into the prospector mining. And there's another one here that's pretty good. I've heard all three of these are quite good, so haven't had a look into myself. The only scary thing is you may notice is they're all concierge, which sucks for normal people. Yeah, I'm hoping when this goes live for everyone, they aren't concierge only, because that's just a bit unfair in my book.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do like the skin though as well, but that's just a personal thing. John, did you want to add anything? You said you went to talk.
Well, yes.
Yep.
Because it's a Q&A, and I want to put you two on the spot. So what speed do you think it's going to refine at, and what yield will we get? Compared to space station refineries.
Now, from what we've been told, John, is it is faster, but not as good quality. So the way I almost compare it to is, that list of all the different ones that we look through when you and I go to the refining console. So you got like Ferox and all that. I almost see it like one of those, but it's lower quality but faster.
I can't see it being lower quality.
Well, I
can see it being lower yield. This is my opinion.
Yield quality. I think we're getting into a debate there on whether it's yield or quality. I think they're basically the same thing. It's really just so it's how much you get back, or the quality of it that comes. So it would be yield. Okay, so yield. I'll give you yield, right? So it would be you'd probably get less back from how much you've mined. Yeah,
it'd be quantity or yield we're talking about, because I don't think the quality is going to be any less.
No. You're right, John. I'm wrong. You're right.
I don't think they're building a system to have different grades of quality of one metal, are they? But yeah, I think it's going to be much faster at a much lower yield, because we kind of covered this when we were talking about it before. But you're not competing with stations in an Expanse. What you're competing with is the fact that you're removing all of that travel time for prospectors to go from wherever they are back to station. And if you're close enough to a station, you'll just use a station.
That's an important thing you bring up there too, with we were talking about the Hull A before. The cargo on the Hull A, even though it's the same as the Expanse, refined cargo, you can have more of it. Where if you're bringing in fresh ore, you've got a lot of inert materials and that mixed up in there. Once that's processed through, sorted out, and then refined, that would be maybe 10%? I don't know. I'm just picking a number, but say it is 10%. That means you could keep stacking it in, so you could get 10 loads into the space of what would have previously been one. So therefore, when the Hull A does go back, it probably is not going back half as frequently as you expect. So,
yeah, exactly that. And, it's got to be, I would suggest, to be worth what it is taking multiple cargo loads from a prospector, and be able to kind of process multiple ones at once.
Like John said, because if you took two loads in from two different prospectors and it packs it down and refines it, it's going to be a lot smaller. It's a given. Yeah. No, 100% agree with that. John.
Now, another question. Do you think we're going to get extra modules to speed up refining and improve yield in it?
So that's an interesting one. Different. So we know there's components and there's subcomponents. So the way I'd see that in interpreting John's question is subcomponents for the mining parts of it. That could be a thing.
No, but not the mining part, for the refining part.
So what? Sorry, I said mining and I meant refining. Sorry, John. But no, that's okay. That's my fault. My bipolar. Don't worry about it. So he's right though, because you get different mining nozzles, you get different components, and they have different levels of quality. I think that's
consumables and passive ones for the prospector. So will we get the modules
So the way I look at it, John, when you have those, you know how we were saying you go to the consoles and there's the different ones you can choose from. Think of it like that, but you cut the way you choose is you change the components.
Yeah, that could be edit.
And you could even, because there's 6 different refineries, not just 6 different materials that you can do. What if you had, say, let's say 2 of them? One was set for, and I'm going to use terms that you would know, ferrix exchange, and then one set for the one that starts with D, and I can't remember the name of it. But you know the one I'm talking about? Yeah. So you could, so you could literally have those different components that process at different speeds, John, and different qualities. So this one will take an hour, and this one will take 3, but because it's active, it's much faster than it.
Much better yield.
Yeah, you get me. Yeah, so I think that's what it'll be. I think they'll be faster, not as good a quality, or not as yield quality is, to me, is the same thing. Yeah. But you are technically correct. It will be yield, not quality. My thing is it's so it is yield. I need to start using yield. You are correct. It's yield.
Or you can use quantity.
Quantity. That's probably the way I was trying. That was how I was trying to mean it. Yeah, when I said yeah. But
because something else you could see is just spitballing here is instead of components, it's catalysts. Because what you could then see, because I often wonder, like the science modules on the Endeavour, what are they doing? What's the Hadron Collider doing? And all this sort of stuff. And, effectively they could create a catalyst that is a consumable that then affects the efficiency of what you're doing as well. So in effect, you've got your refining components, you've got your refining consumables, and those sorts of things. It's not so much a crafting as it is, here's your catalyst, it's good for, 300 SCU of hadnite, and once you're that, you're going to have to come and buy some more.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of ways that they can of build it up in the same fashion that mining's been built up with gadgets and consumables and components.
No, I agree. So it's we're only really scratching the surface of this, and we're even seeing that as well. Now I think about it in the Starfarer with the refueling stuff, because that's got special nozzles as well. So I think we're going to find that component system is going to trickle down to other unique bespoke things for each ship, so to speak. So with this, it's the refineries or reactors, but that also means the Starfarer will have the reactors and stuff like that. The Orion will have reactors. So that's a fairly thought out system. So I can see that, say this has small reactors. Does that mean the Orion has a much larger reactor? So do we also get size components? That's another whole kettle of fish. I don't want to get into that, but you get what I'm trying to say. This could be a lot more detailed than we expected.
We get different size components for the prospector versus the mole.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to, John. Are refineries all the same size? Because at the moment we haven't heard anything about sizes. Does that just mean, so you go to the Orion, does the Orion just get 12 refineries? Or does it just get one large one? You don't know. That's what I'm saying. So there's still a little bit of unknowns, but you can see that complexity. And I think for me, my other question is, what is the mini game for refining? Because when I look at I was in the Starfarer the other day looking at how the refueling works, and it was surprisingly more complicated than I thought it was going to be, because you've got this flow management, you've got to open and close valves to make things to go backwards and forwards, and technically you could actually mix fuels by accident, if you wanted to. You could put quantanium and hydrogen together if you wanted to do that. Not that you'd want to, but can you imagine that, where if you accidentally put chemical A with chemical B and it goes boom? I could see things like that in the future. It would be kind of cool gameplay wise. Don't cross the streams type of thing, but it could be the same with refining. What is that gameplay going to be? Is it like managing the temperatures and skimming off the impurities, and like you think about I'd suggest anyone that's trying to figure out what I'm talking about, go watch some kind of YouTube video on how they refine materials today, and a lot of it is boiling, heating up to incredible temperatures and skimming off the impurities off the top and stuff like that. And I have to imagine there's probably could it go further, where there's a robotic arm and you've move it, like have the robotic arm go into the refinery and literally you're pulling
you
off the
have to
dark
control
patches.
it.
We don't know.
Yeah.
As I'm saying, like this could be way more detailed than anything that we've seen so far. Like it literally could be akin to mining, but you're in the ship. And what I mean by that is, you know, you're moving the laser around and mining the rock. What if you're actually in the refinery and, you know, they see those things where they put the gloves
Getting
on
rid of the crap.
and you're actually, you know,
Yes,
I could see that, but you're actually, you know,
controlling it manually.
So go look, and I'll say that to you two guys as well. Go watch a video on how they refine stuff today, and then take that forward 1,000 years, and it's a one guy, and start to think of what gameplay that could be, and it could be really damn interesting. And we are probably going to see that by the end of the year. I'm half expecting this ship is a little bit what happened to the Talon, where the Talon came out. We already know that this thing is kind of fully modeled. And it only really needs the cargo factor, tractor beams, and the refining gameplay itself. If they can get that all done, the only real tricky one there is the refining gameplay, because the others are scheduled for this year already. So,
Yeah, because there is no refining gameplay at the moment. You just put it into a machine and walk away, don't you, at the refinery and wait. So we don't know what they've got planned for that at all. That's quite
No, and I think, you know, that's going to be because we haven't seen that on the roadmap. We know that there is a gameplay loop that's been booted off the roadmap for this year, which is hacking. That's gone. So it might be that we don't see this ship for quite some time again until the gameplay's in, or it might just be another kind of it, like the Reclaimer will come out not with a gameplay loop. But they seem to be moving away from that. So, you know, I think people should have it in their heads that if this is a ship that you'd be interested in, and I think it's definitely a ship worth being interested in, it might be a little while till you see... Sorry, John, go on.
I've already bought one.
Yeah, actually, speaking of which, John, what was you were telling us earlier what the loaner was for it, because I think it's kind of funny. What's the...
it's the cat. What is it?
Reliant Core.
That's it.
Which is pretty funny.
I haven't got one of those before.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't just give you a freelancer or a prospector for that matter. You know, like why would you give someone the core? But okay, sure.
I've already got 2 prospectors and most of the freelancers, except for the MISC.
Now, we'll actually point out we didn't confirm that. So if John is lying to us, it's a really good trick because he's done that before.
I'm not lying. That was on my... I actually went into the game after I bought it and upgraded it just to look.
All right. Anything you want to add, Badgers, before we wrap this up? I think we've kind of...
Well, actually, one more question.
One more question? Go ahead.
Will the bags on a mole have same fittings?
And that was the question we had as well. So, because if you go back to this image, give me a minute, I've got to get back to the image, and I've also got back to the browser.
That one where the bag fits, because the mole is bigger, isn't it?
It looks like the answer to that is yes, John. It will have the same fitting, because on that page, if you go down to the section that says ready to receive, it says the Expanse integrates seamlessly with all leading contemporary mineral extraction systems.
Yeah, so
supporting the UEC standard mineral storage pods used throughout the Empire. So my guess is yes.
Yeah. The only confusing thing there though is it actually lists the bags for the mole as being 12 SCU, which is just kind of weird because it also says there that they're the standard and you know they're 8. So I'm hoping there's some kind of clarification there in the Q&A. 100, like it is a little confusing.
Where that last picture of the 3, does the bag fill there completely, or is there room either side to get a slightly bigger bag in there instead?
I do not understand what he's saying.
Because it's attaching to the top, John. I think if the connections are the same, it will still connect. Because it's not grabbing the bag in its entirety. It's not like the pods on the side where it has the metal banding.
It looks like
it
come down to just to keep it in place, doesn't it?
Exactly that. It's literally grabbing a connection on the top rather than holding
the
it
bag
around the
So
circumference.
as long as that plate's the same size, the bag could be 10 times as big as long as that connection is the same size, and that's what you're essentially saying, aren't you, Badges? If the connection's the same, it can do it. That said, though, it probably can't store those bags if they are physically larger, where it can store the ones for the prospector.
Yeah, and that would be my guess as to why it speaks more specifically of the prospector, in that there's more interchangeability of bags. It can still unload at the back because, like it says, right at the top, it says it's specifically designed to work with mining vehicles like the prospector. That's word for word. Specifically designed to operate in tandem with mining vehicles like the MISC prospector. So it's not limiting to it. It's obviously, I think that's going to be the best fit, but hopefully it will work with the others. Hopefully.
Does that answer all your questions, John?
Yeah, except for the very last one, so you can both have a dig at me for this one.
Right.
Are you ready? So the last question I wrote down is, with a question mark at the end of it, why am I here?
I don't know, but I'm starting to ask that question myself, John. I don't know about you, Badges, but yeah. All right, Dan.
It's because I was down on my community service quota for this month, and apparently helping the aged counts. So, thanks, John.
How many hours have you got left then on your community service, mate?
Too many.
I don't want to talk about it.
You stop going to that school now.
That's personal. Stop it.
Yeah, right now, you can tell this is what happens at the disc all the time. So yeah, John's a handful. We should put him back in his box. All right, with that, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on what you think of the ship. Do you think we're kind of on the right track? And anything that you think is interesting as well, because as I said, there's 2 nozzles on top as well. So there's definitely some kind of interaction there with the Starfarer, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, anything you want to hear in the comments, Badges? Yeah, tell us about Badger's pretty face in the comments.
No, don't tell us about Badger's pretty face in the comments, or anything else for that matter.
You do now. They're all going to be comments about your pretty face. Now you've said that. But anyway, all right. With that, he's been Badges. I've been Excute. He's been John. Don't look at me like that, Badges. And we'll catch you in the next one. Oh, the face only a mother could love.